Let's take a look at the Haftorah in Parshat VaYera. It speaks about Elisha resurrecting a dead child. In Parshat VaYera, Elisha and the Shunammite woman. And what's the message for us for today? In Parshat VaYera, the Shunammite woman, this Balas Chesed, just like Sarah was a Balas Chesed, both of them were barren, they were akara. In the schus of Achnosas Archim, both of them were able to have a child. But it's very strange that the Navi Hashem, the Isha Lakim, tells the Isha Shunammite in the Haftorah of VaYera, he tells her in Pasuk Tezayin, the same language that the Malachim use to tell Sarah she's going to have a baby, the same language Elisha says in Pasuk Tezayin in the Haftorah, 1 year from now you'll be alive, at choiveket ben, you will be hugging and embracing a child. So the Talmud says that this child was the prophet Chavakuk. Because she said, the Navi said, at choiveket ben, you will be hugging a child, chaveket, and this child who got resurrected grew up to be the prophet Chavakuk. So after getting such a great bracha from the Navi, she was waiting years to have a child, she couldn't have a child, so she said, Al Adoni Ishalehim, no, my master, man of God, Al techazeh b'shivchosecha, do not deceive your maidservant. The Rabbi, the biggest tzaddik in the world, gives you a bracha that you're going to have a child. Isha Lakim, what should she say? Amen, thank you, Rabbi. She says, no, Al techazeh b'shivchosecha, do not deceive your maidservant. What kind of answer is that? She should have said, Amen v'chen yiharatzayin, right?
She reacted like Sarah. Yes.
She doubted just like Sarah. Beautiful. She doubted just like Sarah. Huh? The problem is that Sarah heard it, but she thought there were 3 schnorrers. Sarah didn't know that they're malachim. She thought they're 3 schnorrers giving her a bracha. They want to come back for a meal again, so they say the hostess will get pregnant, right? And she'll invite him back for a meal. But this was Isha Lakim. She knew that she's dealing with a man of God, a Navi, and whatever a Navi says comes true. How dare she say, Al techazeh b'shivchosecha, how dare she say, do not deceive your maidservant? What kind of answer is that? And when the child dies, look at Pasuk Chav Ches, she goes to complain to the Navi. In Pasuk Chav Ches, Vatomer, she says, Ashalta ben meit Adoni? Did I ask for a child from my master? Halo yamarti, didn't I tell you, lo tashla oti? I told you, don't deceive me. Don't lie to me. That's how you talk to a Navi Hashem, David? So the Talmud says she had Ruach HaKodesh. She knew that this child is going to die. So she said, if the child is not going to live, I don't want a child in the first place. I don't want a sick child. I only want a healthy child that'll live. If he's sick and he's going to die, I don't want him. That's what she said. And Elisha taught her, no, any child, even a sick child, you have for a precious amount of time. Every moment is eternal value.
That's right.
So this is what she didn't understand. She said, don't lie to me because I know the child you're giving me is going to die. And that she didn't want. But that's the wrong message. Any child is a bracha. Sick, healthy, no matter how long he lives, every moment of life is eternal value. We can't put a price on life, on the value of a life. And this is one of the messages of the Haftorah, that life is precious. Even if a person is sick, a child is sick and he won't live, appreciate every moment that you have with that sick child. Appreciate the time that you have. Every moment is an eternity. And this is what the woman had to be taught, and through her we had to be taught that lesson. It's amazing that the way she reacts and the way Hagar reacts. In the Parsha, Hagar's child is also dying. Yishmael, she ran out of water, remember?
Yeah.
He's dying. What does she do? She throws him under a tree and she goes away from him. What's the reaction of, that's an Arab mother. What's the reaction of a Jewish mother? Look at the Haftorah, Pasuk Kaf. 20. VaYera, she picked up the sick, dying child. VaYera limo. VaYeshev al berkeo ad hatzarayim v'yamot. The dying child sat on her knees until the afternoon, until he died. Unlike Hagar, what did she do with her dying child? She threw him away. This Isha Shanamit, with her dying child, even though it's killing her, she hugged him and kept him on his knees until he died. So Rav Hirsch points out the different reaction between a Jewish mother and Abu Mamzer's mother. Now, the child eventually does get resurrected. The great miracle, David, the child gets resurrected, right? So what's the message? That death is a preparation for Tchiyat HaMeitim. The child dies, gets resurrected. What's the message? That everybody dies, but death is a preparation for Tchiyat HaMeitim. Death is a preparation for what? For revival of the dead. But first, a person has to die. That's individually. But the nation of Israel, we are like a dead child. After 2,000 years after the Holocaust, we've been revived. The dead child is Israel after Auschwitz. And we're back, revived. We're back, Baruch Hashem, right? So this is the story of Chavakuk, the story of this woman, this Balas Chesed woman, in the Schus of Achnosas Orchim. She had a child in her old age, a miracle child, just like what? Mama Sarah, in the Schus of what? Of her Achnosas Orchim. But if you go back to Parshas Lech Lecha, Bereshis 12, Pasuk 5, it says, Avram took his family, Vesanefesh asher osu b'charan. He took the soul that he made in Haran. Hanefesh is in the singular. He took the soul that he made in Haran. Bereshis 12, Pasuk 5. So what do you mean the soul that he, how did the English translate that? Do you know? Ziesel, 12:5. The soul?
Souls, no, they say souls.
They say souls with an S, right?
Correct.
David, I'm a soul man. But it's written soul. And the soul that they made in Haran. So how do you make a soul? So Rashi quotes the Talmud that Abraham was Megayer the men, and Sarah's Megayeret the Noshim. And the Torah considers it as if you made them. If you bring someone close to what? The truth. For Jews, Judaism. For non-Jews, Noahidism. Keep the seven, go to heaven. It's like you made their soul. So how come it's called nefesh, not nefoshot? Ruvain, you should say nefoshot. The souls that they made in the Haran. They say slaves they made in the Haran? We'll get to that. But the problem is it's written in the singular, and why is it translating the plural? It should have said nefoshot. Why nefesh? The Talmud tells us in Sanhedrin, Kol ha-mekayim nefesh achas mi-Yisrael ki-ilu kayim olam moleh. If you save one life, if you teach Torah to one person, Avi, it's like you taught it to the entire world. Nefesh, nefoshot, we can't put a value. One human life is equal to the entire world. So therefore the Torah writes nefesh. Even though Avram made many, many converts, and he taught Torah, but even if he only did one, you teach Torah to one person, you save a person's life, physically or spiritually, it's like you save Ruvain the entire universe. And therefore it's written in the singular. And the Rambam learns from here, from this pasuk, the souls that made in Haran, that there's a mitzvah in the Torah to love God. Havat Hashem. How do you love God? Says the Rambam, one way is if you teach Torah to Jews and the Noachide religion to non-Jews, you are imitating Avram Avinu and loving God. Avram taught Torah, the Noachide religion, Torah. So the Rambam says, anytime you teach Torah to Jews and the Noachide religion to non-Jews, you are imitating Avram Avinu. You are making that person. You're giving that person back his life, and that's how you're loving God, because you're sharing God with all humanity, just like Avram Avinu. And the Rabbi learns there's actually a mitzvah to make converts. From this pasuk, there's a mitzvah to make converts. Anefesh asher osu b'charan. Why does the Torah tell me that Avram made souls? So the Rabbi learns from here it's a mitzvah to make converts. Whether righteous converts or Noachide religion, doesn't matter. Keep the 7, go to heaven. So if you make someone, you give someone spiritual values in life, you are making him. I'm a made man. Hanefesh asher osu b'charan. So Rashi says, Abraham converted the men, Sarah converted the women. But Rashi also brings Zisel Yopshat, the souls that they bought in Haran. Rashi brings another interpretation that Abraham and Sarah bought a lot of slaves, male slaves and female slaves, and it also means that. David, I don't understand that. Do you understand that? I need to know 3,700 years ago that Abraham and Sarah bought a lot of slaves. What's the message? Why is that important? So they bought a lot of slaves. The Torah is not a history book. The Torah is GPS. Why is that important to know that they also bought slaves?
Maybe they bought them to free them.
They bought them to convert, to teach them.
They lived in their house.
Give them an opportunity.
So Rashi's two pshatim are actually one. They bought slaves, male and female, in order to teach them the true religion, Noachidism. Because if, what? They were idol worshippers. Why should I listen to you, Abraham? Go take a hike.
That was really a captive audience. He owned them.
He owned them. They're a captive audience. If you're a slave, you have no choice. So that's why Abraham bought slaves. Not to be a plantation owner. You remember Gone with the Wind? He bought slaves in order, not for luxury, but in order what, Beryl? To teach them. So Rashi's two pshatim, Kathy, come together right now. That's why he bought them, Leah. Right? Remember Gone with the Wind? You don't need slaves, you know, luxury. But if they didn't buy them, why should I listen to you, Abraham? Go take a hike. Go take a long walk off a short bridge. But now, I owe you. You want supper tonight? You got to listen to me. So that's really two pshatim is really one shot, yes?
When these slaves are all being Knanim, so when they're free, they become Jews of the whole of
Right, but there were no Jews in those days. No such thing as Judaism until Har Sinai, right? There's no such thing. But he bought them in order to teach them. Otherwise, why should they listen to him? Yes?
Ultimately, it was Hashem that gave him a blessing to have money.
Right.
So with the money, what does he do? He uses the money to convert people to...
Right? That's what we call a captive audience. You got to listen to me. Otherwise, no din tonight. Yes?
He must have been very successful because later on we're taught that if we have servants at our people, we have to like give them the best pillow, the best bed.
Right. That's right.
And bondsmen seem to be, you know.
You have to treat them with dignity, right? With dignity, you have to treat them with dignity and with respect, right? So here you have, God comes to visit Abraham. Abraham is sick, third day after meal, God comes to visit him. And meanwhile, there are three people knocking on the door, they want a meal. Right? So what does Abraham say to God? Excuse me, God, I'll put you on hold. I'll take care of the three guys. I'll get back to you. So the Talmud learns from here that receiving guests in your home is greater than what? Than receiving God's presence. Because Abraham, after all, interrupted his visit with God and he went to take care of the Orchim. So we learn it from Abraham. But how did he know it? How did he know it, Dr. Abramson? Isn't it chutzpah? If a king comes to visit you and the three schnorrers looking for a meal, what do you say? Excuse me, kingy? Or you tell the schnorrers, get lost, come back tomorrow. That's what you would say. But this is the King of Kings visiting Abraham. How did he know that he was supposed to interrupt God's visit to take care of three strangers? We learned it from him, but how did he learn it? Rabbi Weber, how did he learn it?
He was brought up right.
Brought up right? He was brought up by pagans. The answer is Abraham knows, Shelley, there are no coinky-dinkies. Why did these three guests come now? They could have come before God's visit. They could have come after God. Nothing happens by chance. If they came in the middle of God's visit, it means that God wants me to take care of them. Otherwise, they'd come sooner or later, David. You hear this? There are no coincidences. That's how he learned it. What? There was no Torah yet, right? It's going to be Pesach, right? But this is the idea that whatever happens, happens. There's a plan. They didn't just come then. Abraham knew that there's no accident. If they came now, that means God wants me to interrupt the visit and take care of them. So Achnosas Orchim is such a great mitzvah. Such a great mitzvah that it's even greater than receiving God's presence. Why is that? Because every human being is a tzelem Elokim. Every human being is a chelik Elokayim Yimal. When you entertain a human being, you're also entertaining his godly soul. It's a twofer, Masha. God is visiting, right? But he entertained a human being and give him dignity and respect and what he needs. You're entertaining the human being and also the Tzelem Elohim inside of him, the Chelik Elahai inside of him. It's a twofer. Is that amazing? And therefore, in the middle of Kiddush Levana, remember Kiddush Levana, the Talmud says it's like Mikabel Panei Ashchina. But not really, because the moon is not the Shechina, it's Ki'ilu. When you do Kiddush Levana, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says it's Ki'ilu Mikabel Panei Ashchina. Because we see God through his handiworks, but it's not really. In the middle of Kiddush Levana, we say Shalom Aleichem. Why? From Rabbi Prague says, when you say Shalom Aleichem, it's not Ki'ilu Makabel Panei Ashchina, it's Mikabel Panei Ashchina. Do you mind opening the window there? I don't want to fall asleep, thank you. So receiving a human being with respect and dignity, you're receiving God's presence. It's a twofer. Every human being has part of God in him. So when you're honoring the human being, you're also honoring the part of God that lives inside of him. Sarah, it's a twofer. Therefore, Achnosas Orchim is even greater than receiving God's presence, because you are receiving God's presence, plus you're entertaining the human being that has a part of God in him, which every human being has, a Tzelem Elohim, the image of God. But why is Achnosas Orchim such a great mitzvah? Achnosas Orchim is such a super great mitzvah, David. Why? Because Achnosas Orchim reminds us that we are only Orchim in this world, guests. Why is entertaining a guest in your home such a great mitzvah? Because it reminds us that we are only guests in God's home. We're only in God's hotel, right? We're guests here, right? For 120 years, we're only guests. So Achnosas Orchim reminds us that we too are only guests. Guests are temporary, here today, gone tomorrow. So don't get too attached to Olam Haba, to Olam Hazeh, Avi, because we're only guests here. Who reminds me of that? Achnosas Orchim. That's why it's what? It's such a great super mitzvah. Such a great super mitzvah. So, the mitzvah Achnosas Orchim is the Eshel. Achila Shtiya Leviyah. Avram fed them, he gave them to drink, and then in Bereshis 18, Pasuk 16, Bereshis 18, Pasuk 16, Abraham escorts them, l'shalcham. He escorts them. So you see that the mitzvah of achnasas orchim is divided up into eshel. Achila, shtiya, achila, shtiya, leviyah. Which of the three is the most important? I'd say the food and the drink. That's what I would say, right? But the Rambam says, Sarah, the Rambam in Hilchos Avel tells us, Schar halaviyah meruba min hakol. Did you know that? The reward for escorting a guest after you give him the steak and the wine and the par of ice cream, says Rambam in Hilchos Avel, chapter 14, the reward for escorting the guest out the front door, down the stairs, is greater than what? Than the cholent and the gefilte fish and the chopped liver. Leah, I don't understand that. I'll take the cholent and the gefilte fish. Keep your escort. Why does the Rambam say that the leviyah, the escort, the reward is greater than giving the guest food and drink? Give me the food and drink. Keep your escort. Masha, you hear with your question? Why?
I was only telling her that my grandfather, always insisted
That
we have to walk our guests to the door.
he heard the shear.
Maybe you heard it.
But why? Why?
Does it have something to do with when someone is killed outside of a city?
Right.
And they sort of say to the rabbis, did you take care of it?
Right.
So this is...
But why?
Like it's because you make sure the person is caring.
Good, but let's make it simple, because we have a lot of ground to cover. Food and drink, that's hanoah for the guf. The body has pleasure. So you give the guy a Chinese meal, in 12 minutes he's hungry again. A lot of what, buddy, what's in the Chinese food? MSG. So even if you give him a steak dinner, right, he's hungry after 4 hours, right? The food and the drink is a temporary hanoah because it's physical, it wears off. But the escort is the hanoah of the neshama. The neshama gets physical. The neshama can't relate to food and drink. It's not. But the escort, that's kavod. And the neshama is called, in Tehillim 30, what does King David call the neshama? Kavod. King David in Psalm 30 calls the godly soul kavod. It's the glory of God. So by when you escort a person out, the body couldn't care less. But the neshama gets fargenigin. How do you say that in English? Fargenugin. Pleasure from the kavod. You appreciated my visit. You're walking me out, that means you want me back. That doesn't wear off like a Chinese food meal. Egg roll, you're hungry again in 5 minutes. You hear? That's why Leviyah, says the Rambam, the schar is meruba min hakol, because the neshama gets hanoah, kavod, and that doesn't wear off.
When you first discussed it, always the implication is that it's a mitzvah for the person, obviously, who's doing it.
Right.
It's also very transforming for the person who's the guest.
Go ahead.
Something connects him to another neshama, and you can ask Balei Tshuvas how
Right.
astounding the experience is when we come from a world where...
Right. The experience of the escort or the cholent,
yes.
or both.
Well,
If you just escort him without the cholent, it doesn't count. First you have to give him the cholent and the gefilte
But
fish
even before that...
and the par of ice cream, and then the escort. If you just give him an escort, Leah.
I mean, the whole package, even coming into the home...
Right.
...is...
Right.
It's an astounding act of giving that was
Nachon.
recognized.
Nachon.
Maybe in a world that seems...
Let me give you...
It would have done a lot of
Nachon.
transforming people.
Right? Let's go to Bereshis 21. If you look at Bereshis 21, verse 33. I'll read it to you. Vayita Eshel beBeer Sheva. Abraham planted an Eshel in Beer Sheva. What do you mean he planted an Eshel?
It's an Aisha.
Eshel is an acronym. FBI, CIA, IRS, NYPD. Eshel stands for Achila, Shtia, and Leviah. Abraham planted giving food and drink and an escort to his guests. Why is that called planted? Rabbi Yaakov, what he planted? Eshel is an acronym. Achila, Shtia, Leviah. It's an acronym.
So we'll grow.
Vayita. So why Vayita? Vayita means to plant. Rabbeinu Bechai says something incredible. That word Vayita is found in Bereshis Aleph. It says Vayita Hashem gan be'eden. God planted a gan. What does a gan mean? A garden in Eden. So Rabbeinu Bechai says, if you do achnosas orchim, you also get planted in Gan Eden. If you just came to hear this, now we can go home. Not yet, but you hear why it says Vayita Eshel? Why is achnosas orchim called planting? Eshel is an acronym. Achila Shtia Leviah, said Rabbeinu Bechai. In Genesis 1 it says Vayita Hashem Gan Be'eden. The same word Vayita. God planted, Avi, a Gan Be'eden. Why should I care that 6,000 years ago God planted a garden in Eden? Why should I care? The Torah's GPS. Said Rabbeinu Bechai. If we do achnosas orchem Eshel, we, after 120, will be planted in Gan Eden. That's my ticket to ride, Sarah, your ticket to ride. Right? What kind of gracious host and hostess, right? You were and are all the time. That's your ticket to ride, Sarah and Abraham. Like the original Sarah and Abraham. Your ticket to ride. That's achnosas orchim is such a precious mitzvah. Because you're not just greeting the person, you're greeting his godly soul. It's a twofer. Jews love bargains.
I think
No, every man a Jew doesn't love a bargain, twofer.
I think when you give, you emulate God. God likes to give.
Right.
And so when you you host people,
Right.
giving, and it also is something for yourself, which is like,
When we give,
do it to get something, but
who is the greatest host in the history of mankind? God. Every day he invites us into his home and he feeds us and gives us the drink. Kodesh Baruch Hu, he's the greatest one, David. So when we do achnosas orchim, we're imitating the boss.
Gives us air to breathe.
Right? He invites us into his living room, his universe. He gives us life, health, wealth, whatever, talents. So when we do achnosas orchim, we are imitating the big boss. V'alachta b'drachav. Before the Akedah, Abraham makes a peace treaty with Avimelech, the king of the PLO, Abu Mamzer. Now, we don't need to know, 37 years ago, Abraham makes a peace treaty with Avimelech in Bereshis 21, Pasuk 28. And as a sign of his goodwill gestures, he gives the king of the PLO 7 sheeps. Or sheep or sheeps? Sheep, thank you. What do I need to know that for? Genesis 21, 28, Abraham separates 7 sheep, and as a sign of his goodwill to Abu Mamzer, to Avimelech, he gives him 7 sheep. So why should I care? This took place 37 years ago, Shana. Says the Bereshis Rabbah. In the book of Shoftim, after Yeshua ben Nun died, the book of Shoftim, the Palestinians, the Plishtim, captured the Ark of Israel. How many months did they hold the Ark captive, the Plishtim? 7 months. Why? Because Father Abraham made a goodwill gesture to the king of the PLO. Centuries before, he gave him 7 sheep. So centuries later, in the book of Judges, the PLO captured the Ark, and held it captive for 7 months. What we do has repercussions, positive or negative. Positive or negative, but they held it for 7 months because Abraham gave the king of the PLO Sheva Kifsot to make 7 lamb chops, 7 sheep. It's even more than that. He makes a peace treaty with him, right? He cuts a Brit, Bereshit 21:32, before Oslo. Sarah, you have it? Bereshit 21:32. They make a peace treaty in Beersheba. I'm reading Bereshit 21, verse 32. He makes a peace treaty with him. And right after that, Bereshit 22:1, after these things, God tested Abraham. And he said, take your son and kill him. Now, Yoel, we know when the 2 Parshas in the Torah next door, Leah, what's the connection? After he makes a peace treaty with the king of the PLO, right after that, God tortures Abraham, and he says, take your son and kill him. What's the connection? Says the Rashbam in the year 1089, the Rashbam. Because Abraham made a peace treaty with the Palestinians to give away parts of the precious land of Israel to the PLO, God put him through the agony of the Akedah. The Rashbam said it was a punishment. I gave you the entire land of Israel to you and your children. Why are you making peace treaties and concessions to murder a terrorist? Take your son and kill him. The Rashbam in the year 1089, Ruvain. Goodwill gestures leads to Akedah. He must have Ruach HaKodesh, the Rashbam, Rashi's grandson. We make goodwill gestures to our enemy, giving away our precious land. That Nebuch leads to Akedah. Oslo Peace Treaty leads to, what does Akedah mean? Blood, fire, smoke, bus bombings, incredible. So we keep making Abraham's mistake. We try to make peace with our enemies, giving concessions, giving up our precious land, and that lo yaleinu leads to the agony of the Akedah. So says the Rashbam, almost 1,000 years ago. Isn't that incredible? Why don't we learn? Right? Whatever Abraham does, positive or negative, has repercussions until today. The Torah is not a history book. The Torah is God's GPS. So God says, take your son and bring him up for a burnt offering. Eretz HaMoriah. Where's Moriah? Rashi says Eretz HaMoriah is what? Is Yerushalayim. Why is Yerushalayim called Eretz HaMoriah? There's a pasuk in Chronicles, Livnot et Bet Hashem b'Yerushalayim b'Har HaMoriah. Shlomo HaMelech built the house of God in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. So why is the mountain called Mount Moriah? So Rashi brings one explanation, Moriah, from the word hara'ah. What does hara'ah mean? Teaching, instruction. Mount Moriah, where did the great Sanhedrin sit? Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, Lishkas, the Sanhedrin. So it's called Mount Moriah because the mountain of teaching, Hashem Hara Yisrael, that's where teaching went out. The Sanhedrin sat in the temple courtyard and they were moreh. What does moreh mean? Teach. So it's called the mountain Sarah of teaching. Another reason why it's called Mount Moriah, says Onkelos, because in Mount Moriah, twice a day, the Kohanim burned incense. What was the strongest smell of the 11 herbs and spices? Myrrh. Myrrh. Mountain of perfume. Mount Moriah, says Onkelos David, the mountain of myrrh. Of the 11 herbs and spices, the strongest delicious smell was myrrh. So Mount Moriah, the mountain of perfume and incense, and the Talmud says in Yuma, if you lived here 2,000 years ago, you didn't have to buy any Right Guard or Chanel number 5. The entire city, Elisheva, was inundated with the delicious smell, better than Chanel number 5, better than Right Guard or Menin. Mountain of perfume, Mount Moriah. Yes? Mount Moriah.
Also, to be seen from Le'erot or Le'herot, to see or to be seen, because it's elevated.
Right, but that's something else. That's later on. This Mount Moriah. Later on, Avram called the mountain Hashem Yireh and Hashem Yireh. After the Akedah, Avram called the mountain Hashem Yireh, God will see, and Hashem Yireh, God will be seen. And Malki Tzedek called the city Shalem, so God took the name Yireh Shalem. Yireh Shalem, David, is what? Yerushalayim. So Avram said, Hashem Yireh, God will see. God will see. God will see what? All the pilgrims coming up. God will see them. And Hashem Yireh, the mountain where God will be seen. We came up 3 times a year to the Beis HaMikdash to see and to be seen. To see the big boss and to be seen by the big boss. So Hashem Yireh, God will see the pilgrims, and Hashem Yireh, God will be seen by the pilgrims. What about what?
Uses the same language.
Oh, so you was asking a good question. Last week's Parsha was Lech Lecha. Go to find yourself. Go to fulfill yourself. The same language is used by the Akedah. In Bereshis 22, Pasuk 2, please take your son, your only one that you love, Yitzchak, and go for yourself to Mount Moriah and bring him up for an offering. Why does the Torah use again Lech Lecha? It used it last week. Lech Lecha, when God told her to make Aliyah, go to find yourself. Go to fulfill yourself. If you want to fulfill your potential in life, you can only do it what? Here. But he's already here. Why Lech Lecha again, David? People think Aliyah ends at Ben Gurion Airport. I made Aliyah, I got my luggage, now I can go to the beach. No. Lech Lecha. While you're here, you have to continue to progress. Making Aliyah to Ben Gurion Airport or Mishrat HaKlita, that's only the beginning. You have to continue to grow. And the only way a person grows is through what? Yes. Trials and tribulations. No pain, no gain. Lech Lecha. We grow through trials and tribulations, especially in Eretz Yisrael. Right? But there's no other way to fulfill yourself. Only here and only through trials and tribulations. Because only when the going gets tough do the tough get going. Otherwise, you're in cruise control. David, you ever see the Pepsi commercial, no pain, no gain? The guy's working out in the gym. If he doesn't work out, your muscles become flabby. If you don't get tested, you become flabby in the spiritual world as well. Right? Yisurim, that's right, Eretz Yisrael, Nikna B'Yisurim. So God sends him to kill his son. Who stops him? A malach. Yoel, is that cricket? God sends him to kill his son.
He created the angel.
Oh. So God sends an angel to stop him. Why didn't God stop him himself?
Abraham created the angel.
David gave the answer. The Mishnah Masechta Avot says every time you do a mitzvah, you create an angel. Avot chapter 4. Now, Sarah, 92% of all the statements in the oral Torah have to have a source where? In the Chumash. How does the Mishnah in Avot 4 know that every time you do a mitzvah, you create an angel? Leah, how does the Mishnah know that? From right here, David gave you the answer. The Malach called to him. Why did God send the Malach? God didn't send the Malach. The very fact that Abraham did the mitzvah of the Akedah, the Malach was created. This is the proof that every time you do a mitzvah, you're creating a Malach. How many malachim are we creating now? Every word of Torah that you do, that you speak or hear, you're creating armies of angels. And after 120, this way your table's waiting. Huge escort that we're creating malachim, and this is the fact. God didn't send the angel, but like David said, the angel was created throughout the mitzvah. And that's the proof that Avram did the mitzvah. That he wanted to do it. Machshava tova, Kadosh Baruch Hu mitzav l'maaseh. So that's one explanation why the malach, why the angel, why didn't God stop him himself? Rav Kook gives a very interesting interpretation. He says the malach was Abraham's conscience. God, you can't mean to really kill him. The malach inside of us, all of us are malachim, we're godly souls. Avram realized that he misunderstood God's command. God never said kill him. God said bring him up. Now you brought him up, then bring him down. That's the way Rashi explains. The malach was Avram Avinu's conscience, says Rav Kook, telling him that it's not what God meant. God was only testing you. God would never say to kill him, so that he realized that what? That it was only a test. The malach inside of us. And then Avram says, Hayom, today, Bahar Hashem Yirayeh, the mountain of God is seen, Hayom. So Rashi quotes the Midrash, what's the Hayom? This took place 3,700 years ago. So if you look at Bereshis 22, verse 17, Avram calls the name of the place Hashem Yireh. And he says Hayom. What does Hayom mean? Today. But this took place 3,700 years ago, Benish. Why is it today? Rashi says, Benish, you're sitting down? The reason that we are in Pisgat Zev today, I mean in Rechavia today, in Talpiot today, is because what Abraham and Yitzchak did 3,700 years ago. On and on, on and on. Hayom. Because they did this act of Mesirat Nefesh 3,700 years ago, we are here today. In the schus of the Akedah. What does the word Akedah mean? Tie up. The tying up of Yitzchak. The Akedah. Tie him up. Remember the TV? Tie him up. No, I can't mean to tie him up. What does the sheriff say to the deputy? Tie him up. Right? They remember tie him up. What's tie? Why is it called the Akedah? Call it the sacrifice of Isaac or the Mesiras Nefesh of Isaac. Why do we keep talking about the Akedah? And when did the Akedah take place, says the Midrash? On Rosh Hashanah. Please hear me well. No kuminkidinki that the Akedah took place on the Judgment Day. So the Zohar Kodesh says something incredible. Abraham represents the Midas HaChesed, right? Yitzchak represents Gevura Din, strict judgment, right? You get exactly what you deserve. So the Zohar Kodesh says that on Rosh Hashanah, God told Abraham, the Midas HaChesed, to tie up Yitzchak. Yitzchak is Din, Gevura.
And Yitzchak let himself.
Right? So this is the message, that Avram's Chesed, Tzorech lakod et adin. Chesed should win out and tie up din. Because on din alone, who can survive, David? Who can survive on strict justice? So even on Rosh Hashanah, which is the Yom Hadin, we dafka read the Akedah, where the Chesed, Abraham, ties up Yitzchak, which is din Gevura. Pretty incredible, huh? Wow. Now, so after the Akedah, Bereshis 22:19, You see that, Sarah? Bereshis 22:19. After the Akedah, they passed the test. Abraham returns to the guys waiting for him, and they went back to Beersheba. Didn't we forget somebody? Buddy. Surah said, Vayoshav Abraham v'Yitzchak. Hakman says, Vayoshav Abraham alone. Didn't we forget the hero of the story? Yitzchak let himself be killed, and he was stopped at the last minute. So how come the pasuk in Genesis 22:19, anybody want to read it in English?
Yeah, Abraham then returned to his,
Abraham what?
then returned to his servant.
What about the hero of the story, Shelley?
Yeah.
He disappeared. What happened to him? Sean, what happened to him? Forgot somebody on the mountain. Avi, what happened to the star of the play? So it said Abraham and Yitzchak returned. What? But where was he? Remember we said most statements in the Talmud have to have a source in the written Torah. The Talmud says, Machshava tova k'shbocha mitzar l'maseh. If you intend to do a mitzvah, Ruvain, with all of your might, you intend to do it, but you're prevented from doing it by circumstances beyond your control, in God's eyes it's what? Done deed. How does the Talmud know that? Here, because it doesn't say Yitzchak returned. Return to sender. You see, Sarah, how the oral Torah works? The oral Torah squeezes the written Torah. Squeeze, like you squeeze an orange. Yidizisl. How does the Talmud know if you want to do a mitzvah with all of your might, and you're prevented from doing it by circumstances beyond your control, it's like you did it. The Talmud knows it from here. Surely it says Abraham returned. It should have said Abraham and Yitzchak returned. But since Yitzchak wanted to become a sacrifice, Avi, in God's eyes, he became a sacrifice. Even though not really, but in God's eyes he became one. And therefore it doesn't say that what? That he returned. Of course he returned. He had 2 children later on. Dead people can't have twins. What? What, Cecil?
Could have gone somewhere else.
Where did he go? Aratan Yeshiva? Tuition is very expensive. Yeah. Aratan Yeshiva. You know what they want for a seminary girl? $30,000. My granddaughter wants to come here for seminary. $30,000.
Yes, yes.
He couldn't afford to send him to a seminary. So where was he? Ruvain, David, where was he? In God's eyes, it's like he became a sacrifice. Therefore it says Abraham returned along. Then it says Vayelchu yachta. Very strange. Sarah, please read me that verse. Genesis 22:19. Abraham returned to the boys and what? And they went together to Beersheba. Now thank you very much. I need to know, David, that they went together to Beersheba 3,700 years ago. You take the high road, I'll take the low road. Sure, what do you mean they went together? Who cares where they went? Beryl, please hear me. Have in mind your father. I left the list home. Please forgive me, David. I left it home, but it's in my head. Sunday I'll bring it. They're in my heart, but I left the list home. But I have it. Why is it important that they went together? So Rav Hirsch says something. If you just hear this, Elisheva, we can go home. We're not going to go home yet. Abraham had just passed the most awesome test a human being can pass. He was a superstar in God's eyes. He's coming down the mountain. Who's waiting for him? 2 servants. He could have said, do you know where I have been? Do you know where I have been? Step aside, you small fry. Yachtov. He didn't consider himself any better than the 2 servants. After passing such an awesome test, reaching the heights that greater than a malach can reach, you would think that he couldn't put his hat on anymore. Servants, step aside. You know who I am? You know where I've been? You guys are zero. But no, yachdav. Together. It doesn't mean you take the high road, I'll take took the same sheirut moniot. It means, Sarah, that he didn't consider himself any better or superior to the servants. That's Avram Avinu. I'm no better than you guys. Yachdav. The sign of what? Of a spiritual giant, yet humility. The sign of the Jewish people. How great a human being can become. Please look at the beginning of the Parshat. Beginning of the Parshat, Genesis 18, it says he lifted up his eyes and 3 men were standing over him. That's what the Hebrew says. Genesis 18:2. He lifted up his eyes, he saw 3 men standing over him. What does that mean? How did they stand over him? Because they were not really men, they were malachim. And a malach towers over a human being. So it's not a geography lesson, Leah. They were towering over him because angels tower over human beings. Later on, after Avram does mitzvah nosas orchim, please take a look at Genesis 18:8. He gives them butter and milk and a roast beef sandwich. Is that kosher? Genesis 18:8. They weren't Jewish. Leah, keep the 7, go to heaven, no problem. Cecil, Genesis 18:8. Can you read that, Pete? He
took curds and milk and
yogurt and milk.
the bullock,
The bullock, meaning a roast beef sandwich.
which had been prepared.
Yeah.
He set it before them, and he waited on them under the tree.
Doesn't say that. It says, "Who omed aleihem." He stood over them. Doesn't say that. I'm a text man, but you can't trust the English. Who omed aleihem. He stood over them. Buddy, what do you mean he stood over them? Who cares where he stood? Doesn't say that. It says, Omed Aleihem. I know Hebrew. He stood, Omed Aleihem, he stood over them. Before Achnasas Orchim, the Malachim towered over him spiritually. But after he did Achnasas Orchim, he turned the tables, Yoel. Hu Omed Aleihem. After Achnasas Orchim, a human being stands above Malachim. Not a history book, Ruvain. GPS. After Achnasas Orchim, Hu Omed Aleihem. He towered over them after doing the mitzvah Achnasas Orchim. Now it's incredible over here. They ask, where is Sarah, right? They ask Sarah, where are you, right? Would they ask Abraham? Verse 10. Or no, verse 9, Sarah. See verse 9, Genesis 18:9? They ask, where is Sarah? And he says she's in the tent. What does that mean? So Rashi says the Malachim wanted to point out to Abraham that Sarah is a tsanua, that she's a very modest woman, in order to make her more beloved on her husband. You understand this? They're married 80 years, they're no spring chickens. Abraham doesn't know that his wife is a tsanua, that his wife is beautiful and modest. The Malachim have to tell him, Leah. Please hear me well. People spend money on marriage counselors, a lot of money, you know. The Torah is the best marriage counselor. What's the Torah saying? No matter how many years you're married, you must compliment your wife every single day. Honey, you're beautiful. Spiritually and physically. Rashi's saying that. Abraham, did you compliment your wife today? The Malach is saying, who's the Malach? The Malach inside of me. Abraham, did you compliment your Eshes Chayil today? That she's tsanua, she's beautiful, physically and spiritually, what a chesed lady she is. What a message. Doesn't matter how long you're married. How to rejuvenate your marriage. Rejuvenate. Compliment your spouse every day. How beautiful she is, how wonderful she is. That's what the Malach is saying. If it was only Abraham, it wouldn't be in the Torah. We don't need to know what he said to Abraham, but he's speaking to us. Did you compliment your wife today? I think I'm going to go call her now. I got to hear my own speeches. What?
In the beginning, when you said that's a twofer,
Right.
I'm saying it's a threefer.
Why?
When Abraham invited them in,
Right.
what did Sarah say?
What did she say?
I'll have the food for you. I'll go out, I'll get it, I'll do it, I'll do
Right.
it. So, Connie and I have said many times,
Right.
it's not that easy. It's not a twofer.
Right.
One day in Shul, at the great synagogue, there some people didn't have a place to eat, so I said, come to my house. So I take them to the house, and we go in and sit. My wife made dinner for lunch for her and I.
Right.
So I said, I brought 3 people. Her answer to that was, give me 5 minutes and I'll have it set up. But how many wives would say, what do you mean you're bringing people here without giving me notice? That's the...
Dr. Abramson must have ESP. Please give me 5 minutes, David.
Rabbi Sprecher,
Please
I was
give-
there, and
right.
exactly that happened.
Abraham and Lot. It looks like Lot was a bigger chesed guy than Abraham. Abraham says, you guys wait under the tree. I'll bring the food out to you. Lot says, come on home, into my home. It looks like Lot was what? A bigger chesed dude. Please hear me well. The derech Hashem, Abraham, is to do tzedakah and mishpat. In Genesis 18, verse 19, God says, I love him. Doesn't say I love Lot. Looks like Lot was a bigger chesed guy, Abraham. Abraham says, you guys stay out here in the yard. Don't come into the house, and I'll bring you out the goodies. Lot says, come into my home. And yet, what's the derech Hashem in Genesis 18, 19? Abraham. Tzedakah or mishpat. Dr. Abramson touched on that. He doesn't know these guys from Adam. Maybe they're like, I don't know, sexual predators. Going to put his beautiful wife in danger. You do tzedakah and mishpat. You do tzedakah, but justice for your family as well. Lot's chesed was wild, immature. What are you inviting these guys into your home? You don't know them from Adam. Maybe they'll molest your wife and daughters. That's not the Jewish chesed. That's a wild chesed. Not Judaism. Judaism is you do tzedakah or mishpat. You do righteousness, but justice for your family. You don't know the guys. You can invite them into your home. You have a beautiful wife and daughters. Maybe they're what do they call, David?
Yeah.
Perverts. The way of Abraham is tzedakah mishpat. Do righteousness, but do justice for your family. So he didn't invite him into the home. Lot's suggestion was immature and wild and totally off whack, putting his wife and daughters in danger. Therefore, Lot is out, and who's in? Abraham. You guys stay in the backyard. Under the tree. I'll bring you out the roast beef and the goodies, yes?
I was going to say, Lot invited him in because he felt harm was going to come to him. Then he offered his daughters and
So you see that his chesed was off the wall.
for his own family.
You see his chesed was off the wall. That's not Judaism. Tzedakah, but mishpat at the same time, justice for your family, not to take advantage of them. You need that balancing act. That's Avram Avinu. Without telling the wife, of course not. This is the idea that we're learning, right? This is the idea. Don't be a tzaddik on your wife's shoulders. Check with the boss first. Thank you very much. Sunday, 2 o'clock. We have a shiur Sunday at 2. May we lie for Shalom Bayit. Sunday at 2 o'clock. May we lie for Shalom Bayit. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.